So today is our writing day. It's probably Wednesday, but it might not be. So this is the day when we actually start writing our ideas. I've chosen to write on paper. It's up to you whether you use the sheets provided in the pack, whether you write on paper, or if you'd rather just type it, then that's absolutely fine as well. So what I've done is I've already written down onto my paper the short burst writing that we did the other day. I have double spaced it because that means that when I get to the editing stage it's much easier for me to read it, it's clearer, and I can go through and add any mistakes. Even if you are typing, it might be a good idea to double space because it is much easier to see the mistakes that you've made. You can always change it back to single space before you hand it in if you wish to. So I've already written out everything that we did in the short burst writing. What we need to make sure we do as we write is not forget all of the things that we've already done. So we need to make sure that we have this ready and in front of us, and that we have our plan ready and in front of us. And as you'll see, I've already put a tick next to there to show that I've done it. And at the end of each paragraph, I'll be going back to those documents to check that I've done everything that I plan to do. And then obviously I can see what's left and what I need to do. I've also got the waggles handy because I didn't write down every single thing that I highlighted in there, and then maybe something useful that I want to refer to. So don't just leave those to one side in a book, in a folder. Make sure you've got them out and ready to help you. All right. So I've written my introduction. I've finished that, which I didn't do in the short burst session, but I've got that finished. So I'm ready now, looking at my plan, to do my argument for. And so we're looking in this column here at the my ideas, and my first argument for is about actions having consequences, and I've got all of these ideas down here. Fair to innocent people, reassuring for the victim, why should they get away with it, and it's a deterrent. So I'm going to use those ideas in my next paragraph. So I'm going to start with something that I've magpied. I'm going to start with the opening. I'm going to leave a line and indent so it's clear that it's a new paragraph. In fact, because I'm double-sided, I'm going to leave 2 lines. Let me move that up for you. So, it has been argued. Lovely phrase there to start that sentence. By supporters of detention centres that these facilities, lovely formal word there, facilities ensure, now the first thing I've got on my list, so it's actions have consequences, ensure that actions have consequences. Now that is a clear, what we might call a topic sentence. Opening sentence shows very clearly what my argument is. Okay, it's an argument supporting detention centres because actions have consequences. So now I'm going to have a look at my other things. So it says fair to innocent people, reassuring for the victim. I think I might start with that one, reassuring for the victim. So this is reassuring for, and see I've put so much detail in my plan that this is now much easier for me to write because I've got all those ideas down already. So this is reassuring for the victims of crime. Victims is quite a good word there, nice emotive word. Right, I'm going to use relative clause here. Who So we've got a relative pronoun after the noun who to add more detail to this sentence. Who are able to feel a sense, keeping this emotive thing going on, of justice. We've talked about it being fair, so I'm going to mention that now. Trying to keep it impersonal. So let's say members of society another relative clause, who do the right thing can feel a sense. Oh no, we've just said that. Hold on. No, we don't want to say can feel a sense of justice again, do we? Members of society who do the right thing can feel. I said can feel already. I'll leave that for now. I'm just going to put some dots under it and I'll come back to that. Can feel that society, but again I've just said society, so I might just come back to that as well, is fair. Members of let's change members of society to citizens, and then we can use society there. So citizens who do the right thing can feel that society is fair. I don't want to use that can feel. Can know that society is fair. Now in my plan, so I've done it being fair to innocent people, I've done that it's reassuring for the victim. Look, I've already got a rhetorical question now in my plan, so I'm literally going to just take that from my plan. Why should, in fact I don't think I'm going to use the pronoun they because I don't think it's very clear. Why should criminals get away with it? So I've just got to mention now about it being a deterrent. So let's use some kind of conjunction or adverbial that's going to add to this. Let's use in addition. These consequences may act as a deterrent for those thinking of committing crimes and those re-entering, hyphenated word there, society after time in detention. I hope I'm showing to you there, particularly those perfectionists out there, this is what good writing looks like, and it will look even more scruffy when I've gone through and I've edited in Purple Pen tomorrow. Things have been changed, things have been crossed out, I've made mistakes, I've crossed them out neatly and I've carried on, and that's absolutely what it should be like. Okay, I'm going to cross those dots out because I've made the changes that I want to make, although I may change my mind when I come back to it. So that is that paragraph done. And then what you will need to do is work through each of the other paragraphs, ticking off as you go to help you to check what you've done and what you haven't done. What I would also do at this point is go back to this and think, right, what have I included so far? Yes, I've been using an impersonal style. Yes, it's been formal. I've got an opening statement. Facts. I haven't really introduced any facts. So what I might do is just bear that in mind as I continue to write. Again, I haven't yet used any parenthesis to explain any tricky words. So again, that's something that as I'm writing now, I can think, right, how can I get those things into my next paragraph? Rhetorical question, yeah, that's fine. Doesn't mean you can't use some more of those things, but at least I know that I've addressed them. And again, I've used that. This balanced argument will examine the opinions of both sides. I haven't used either of these. You may not end up using all of the things that you've magpied, and that's absolutely fine because you may come up with better ideas. But what you don't want to do is end up repeating the same things over again. Or you might come to the end and you may think, actually, there's some really good phrases in here that I haven't used yet that I want to go back to. So I might think now about, so my next section is about learning about other crimes. And I could talk about that significantly outweighing the benefits, and that would be a lovely link into my last paragraph, outweigh the benefits of any consequence or deterrent. So I'm really going to think about that going forward. I'm not going to write the next paragraph now because I'm not going to write this all for you. What I am going to do is I'm just going to remind you that at this point you would need to start with some kind of contrasting conjunction or adverbial going into your next paragraph. So something like on the other hand, however, etc, etc. All right, so I'm just going to write that there. So what I would suggest you do now is write those argument paragraphs. So copy out your short burst writing, followed by your argument paragraphs, ticking off as you go along to make sure that you've covered everything. And then my next video will be about how to write your conclusion. Okay, thank you very much.